Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black Magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and today we're discussing chapters 33 through 35.
But before we get into the lovely fresh chapters, let's briefly hark on how we got here. So, previously on Wizard Team, Bree and Cell are stuck in a hole together, but as they go on their journey through this hidey hole, which is a tunnel, Cell decides that Bree isn't a demon and therefore is uninteresting. Bree doesn't know how to feel. She just knows that she is disturbed, perturbed, and miffed, and that is carrying on with her. Cell uses this to continue to read her, and it's very funny. They are somehow followed by these mysterious hell foxes who can detect Cell even though they're not supposed to, and Cell cannot detect them. Bree is able to black girl magic her way into punching through one's body. It's gross and disgusting. Tor has been awakened while they have been hunkered together. Nick finds out that Cell and Bree were in that situation because Cell set them up to get Bree to show that she was a demon. Bree is healed and teased by William in the lodge, and it's basically also on some Cell. Girl, I'm not even messing with you like that. And it's hilarious. She learns that she's been moved onto the third trial, which is in 5 days. And she is during this time seeing how Cell is being responded to by Nick, and everyone in the order is finding sympathy for him. She talks to Nick about it. Nick's like, don't worry about it. I got it. She also meets with Patricia and another student and root crafter named Mariah. Both of them looked very concerned about Bree's choice to go into the order and all those racism she's dealing with. And they're like, girl, why bother? Bree is slightly offended, but is also understanding and she feels good to have an outlet to explain the things that she's miffed with there. She also finds out that there's a Black student movement and the concept of community that her father told her about. And we realize it's only been a week. So Bree really hasn't had the time to build that community yet. And she's excited to have that invite into it. And she's similarly invited by Mariah to connect to her ancestors. But as that magic starts to work its way into the conversation, Bree starts feeling really deep bouts of grief, and it hits her so hard. She actually runs away from her trauma, and in the so doing, runs away from Patricia and Mariah as well. And that's where we were in the last episode of Wizard Team.
Sorry,
yeah,
Anyway, so now we start on chapter 33. So Bree runs away from Patricia and Mariah and ignoring their call. She has like a fitful bout. She tries to take a nap, doesn't really work. And then she heads to the training feeling more tired and exhausted than she had before she tried her sad nap. And you know what? Sometimes a sad nap doesn't work, but it's always worth the effort. It's always worth the attempt. I just need you guys to know that while it is one of my go-to coping mechanisms.
Yeah. But also it kind of makes sense in this, it's a lot of stuff compounded.
Yes.
And so it's like, and it's also like she's only had, I think we talked about it last episode, like she only had 6 hours of sleep. Yep. So like trying to take a nap in that situation, you probably needed more time to sleep.
Oh, definitely. And I think
so it might be that too. She might.
For Bree, it's like exhaustion compounds on itself, and like I think there's a study, because I'm obsessed with like the fact that my mom doesn't sleep. Just so you guys know, like a little insight into like what keeps me up at night. That you can kind of catch up on sleep and exhaustion to a certain extent, but there becomes like a point when it just like literally takes time off of your life. Like it's just like, okay, that's like, it kind of goes into what we're going to get into at the end of this chapter. Like there's a debt, there's like a sleep or rest debt. And after it accumulates, and there's like, after a while, the only option is abatement. So
Yeah,
if you're listening to this, get your sleep. Okay?
so it's like sleep is like when you play me, you play yourself.
Exactly. Very much so. And so there is like, multiple kinds of exhaustion. She's like physically exhausted. She like had to escape like the physicality of running from those health boxes, right? Like on its own. She's emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted because Cell has been tracking her down like a demon. She's literally been in life-threatening in two life-threatening situations back to back in less than like an hour. And the way that your mind has to shift from like Cell is the threat to health foxes are the threat, and I'm supposed to now trust Cell to help me get away from the health foxes, even though 20 minutes ago he was trying to kill me. All of that stuff is compounded on Bree, and so safe to say, she's at like her wit's end. Is she though? Because it doesn't actually get any better.
Where's her wits beginning? Like,
yeah. we're like, right, we're almost there.
Right. So then she heads to the training. Nick had told her that Jillian is a good one, and he personally asked her to oversee the training and to look after her in the training. So there's two trainers, Liege Owen Roberts, squire of a fallen scion of Boars. Bree thinks about what that means to be a fallen scion and to have like lost your life while awakened, or just kind of trying to think through what exactly that means. And then Gillian Hanover, who is a Liege of K, never awakened and missing a limb, has a prosthesis, possibly injured in battle, because it also mentions that she, even as a liege, has been sent around by the order to fight. So,
which is like, well, like for one, this is like the first time we've seen other lieges, like other than
Daddy
Davis. And it's just interesting to see, right? Because he's very like deep in the lore and like this all pageantry and all this stuff, right? He's really like feeling his Wheaties as a scion of Arthur. Whereas then in this case, you see the more like
action,
the lower rank,
battle ready.
Yeah, well, not even just like lower like that, but also like the real consequences, I guess, and like the actual danger and like what could happen. Like you see these people who are older, like what's his name? He's the squire to a fallen scion of Boars, right? Like so, like he lost his scion, which is he was bonded to. He was awakened. Also, he's definitely gonna die soon because he was awakened, so he has to deal with abatement. And like, yeah, Jillian doesn't have to deal with that part, but she has like, she's being sent all across the world like a Merlin, like, so they're fighting, you know what I mean, like they are in the thing, whereas like Lord Davis is kind of just, he's there for the
pageantry.
He wants the pageantry, the like glory, but he's not like, and sure, like I'm sure he was fighting. It's not that he wasn't doing.
I mean,
before,
his back got broke
like,
by a demon, so is he really keeping up with
his
training? Like,
but it's like
he really up in the training like room?
No, he's probably not up on it now, but I'm saying at a certain point, like, yeah, he was one of them, you know what I mean? Like he was definitely, it's not like he was never doing anything, I'm sure, but it's just like the nature of, I think, prestige and like where you're ranked and like all these other things. So you just see him being like, oh, this is all great and I'm the head and the whoop-de-whoop, and then you see them and they're, a lot more like gritty and I guess real, if that makes sense.
It also goes to kind of show, like, for me, what I got from this is like, yes, like Lord Davis is like, liege, former scion of Arthur, so he thinks. And so all of his like not awakening, but like eligibility, I guess, I don't know what they call it, but like once he's aged out basically of being a potential scion of Arthur, it's all, like you said, like pomp, circumstance, ceremonial, but like titled and influential So you could kind of see why he would want to stick around. What I get from like Jillian and Owen is like, oh, there's no getting out. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what did Nick think he was doing? Like, did Nick really think he was getting out when he saw all these old grizzled people still?
But even
in
for
the
Bree,
trenches?
it's like, how far are you going to take this? Because if you do pledge yourself or you become, not that she actually has a choice because she's author, but if in her mind and her plan right now, like if you do become a squire for Nick and you and Nick gets awakened and Camlin happens, it's not just like, oh, I get through this time at UNC and I get through this like particular battle and then I can go on and like live a life. It's really like no matter where you're at, they will call on you to train to, and we'll see in Bloodmark too, some other like lieges who are less tied to the order, but they're still involved in like all of the drama and the politics and shenanigans. And so it's not like, oh, this is a thing that I did during this specific time in my life, and then I turn if I'm not awakened, so there's no abatement. Like I turn 35 and I retire and go get a normal life and like regular job and just distance myself from the orders. Like they can always call on you. There's always more things that you are expected to do. And so it's like a truly lifelong commitment, whether it's that your life ends around 35 or you luck out and are not awakened, but then you're, being sent around to fight demons when you're in your 30s or 40s or, or train children when you're in your 40s or whatever. So it's just like one of those things where you really start to think about like how enmeshed and how deep the order goes and how far it infiltrates everyone's life who has anything to do with them at any point in time. And I always think about this, like, I think about this a lot when we talk about, like, going to college in general, or, like, education in general, where I'm like, I was expected to make these decisions at 15 that, like, follow me and stick with me. And, like, knowing who I was at 15, like, why can't we, that's why I've always, like, loved, like, the idea of, like, a gap year or something like that. But, like, why can't I take a moment, let my like hippocampi or whatever, and then make these decisions that like are long lasting decisions, right? And so it's even more so, and a lot of these kids didn't make the decision; they're born into it. It's a cult,
right?
So, it just like it's one of those moments that really makes you think about how large this world is, like even outside of the story of Legendborn and Bree's story of like just like what are the stories of like Gillian Hanover doing a favor for her king who is 19 years old and feeling this chick, right? Like
he's 17, like
17, right? Because he's early college. Like, just
that's the cool thing about. I think that's a good smart choice for, and I guess I think it might have been this chapter, but another one where I really think there are some things that are very much like authorial choice that I really think are well done in this story. And I think that, again, making these big lifelong decisions at this time period where you're like in college is like something like every like 18-year-old generally in the US goes through. But like, within that time frame, you're making like you're taking out student loans that are going to be with you for who knows how long, because they don't get canceled, right? Like if this is all these things, right?
She's talking about abatement.
These lifelong choices. And it's like all for the like hopefully be able to pay to live in society at a better wage than if you were not to attend college. And it's like these are lifelong decisions you're making at the tender age of just coming out of whatever educational program.
And even if it's not college, right? Because I'm dealing with this right now with one of my nieces who is not doing well. She took the community college route, but she's still just not. She doesn't know what she wants to do. She doesn't. School doesn't speak to her. And we're trying to explain to her, like, you don't have to go to school, right? So she's like, now, like, well, maybe I'll do trade school or something like that. And it's like, you don't have to go to school to find something, but like every choice that you make is going to like really set up something. And like, I was just like, do not go to trade school if you are not sure that you want to be in that
trade
like she's talking about
Yeah.
cosmetology school, and I'm like, you talk about college tuition, like cosmetology school, that it's expensive. And like, yes, it's a shorter amount of time, but like you have to still get like, you have to be licensed in certain places, and you know, like there's a lot of money that you have to put up front. And if you do not pursue cosmetology, that does nothing for you. Like at least in college, right? Like there's so many people you always hear about, like, oh, I'm not working in my major, or I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of working in my major because I was smart enough to be like, I want a communications degree instead of a film degree, because then it just, you know, is more whatever. But you can have a bachelor's degree in biology and then do something completely different, but you have a bachelor's degree, right? You have a cosmetology such like licensing, and you don't do cosmetology, like that's a lot of money to invest to go nowhere, right? So like, yeah, it's just weird. And to think about in a book about Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and Ether, like that, like at its core, it's the same thing, right? You're making this decision, especially for once born like Bree. Well,
they think she's
what we think
is the once born like Bree, right? Where she could,
and I think like, yeah, I think like that's especially this like section of chapters. I think because she's coming up on the third trial, and it's like she thought she was gonna have more time. She thought she was gonna have like 6 weeks to do this, like not only because, you know, to train and learn how to fight, but also like, am I actually gonna bind myself to Nick or some other scion? You know what I mean? Could be William, who knows? But like, am I going to actually do that to get to this goal? But even if it's like, you know, she was telling Mariah and Patricia, like, I'm not with them, I'm against them. But at the point that you start taking their oaths, and like, even if you are like, okay, I have enough power to punish the people who killed my mom, then what? When you're done with that, you can't leave after that.
There's no getting out, right? It's like, it's literally joining, like, yes, it's a cult, but it's also the mafia. Like, there's no getting out. It's a gang, you know what I mean? Like, or a gang, right? Like, the mafia is also a gang. But like, you get out in blood. They take it in blood. Like, and so, like,
once you're a vampire, you can't be not a vampire. Like,
exactly. Exactly.
It's
and
true.
So, and I think that's like one thing that we'll see later in this chapter in particular, when Patricia kind of confronts her, which is like, you're going down a path in which like there isn't an easy escape from, and why, you know, like what's the crux of that? So so she meets these two trainers just to like get us back on to what's actually happening. The Legions will train them until Thursday's trial, and then they will be overseeing or refereeing the trial, while all of the scions, regents that are nearby, the what are they? All of the things. I really like feel just like that Charlie Day gif with all of the notes and the string, and just like
because conspiracy.
I mean, okay, we always talk about like the notes and stuff that like George R.R. Martin has for his like epic Game of Thrones, whose line and what goes where and all the political, but like just the titles, Tracy. You were an overachiever in school. You were the person who I hated being on a group project with, because not only was it a group project, but then you had these big plans with a lot of steps. And I was like, not everybody gonna be able to follow along with all these steps, Tracy. You're like, no, but once it comes together, it'll be perfect, it'll be brilliant. And I'm like, but there's gonna be some slackers in our group, Tracy. And who's gonna pick up their slack? And she's like, nope, I got it. Because all of these goddamn titles. This is like my third time reading Legendborn, fourth time reading Legendborn, and now I'm reading it like Wizard Team style, so slow and deep. I still cannot get a handle on
the titles.
The glossary needs to be up. So
is it the titles, or is it the Welsh that you're like, yeah?
It's both, but it's also just like there's so many different. So it's Lieges
like
are
the rank
former scions and
and
squires.
squires.
So Legendborn, the former Legendborn.
No, but they're still
Yeah.
Legendborn. I think Legendborn is just like who you are.
Yes.
I don't think
But
you're
if you just
former.
like say
No, Legendborn I think is if you're in those lines.
like you, even if the people who are training to be in those lines who never get like make it, like they never make it through the trial or
like
whatever, or
Vaughn,
they never get,
or not Vaughn, but
I
whoever
don't
the
think
people
they
are
are.
that
I don't
drop.
think they're, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can call them Legendborn until you
I
actually.
think they are Legendborn.
They're
They'll
like
end up being
training.
vassals.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
not
but they're not
Legendborn.
Legendborn. They're not
Oh,
in
it's
the
only
line.
the ones that are in the line. Only the scions.
And the pages
Yeah.
and the squires. What squires?
Well, no, like it's
No.
just the scions.
It's just the scions.
And then
Legendborn.
the squires
called.
then like it's like the ones who get called are the Legendborn, and then like the squires share that power or whatever, but they're not like
called. They're called or they're awakened because of their squireship. Anyway, everybody else,
or they get bonded and then they awaken.
Yeah. So everybody else in the order at this chapter will be watching this trial on Thursday. Y'all figure out what that means and what them titles are. But all them people, I don't know what's going on with the sun here, but oh well. All them people will be watching while these two lieges referee the trial on Thursday. And whatever. Y'all just I'm just in the sun. So they have until Thursday, right? So Fell comes in to demonstrate using the quarterstaff. Vaughn does that very much like know-it-all Hermione. Ooh, I know what all of each line has a preferred weapon. And so they are focusing on the quarterstaff, which is the preferred weapon of what's his face?
Pete. It's the scions of Owen. The one who has the one who has the lion. They get a lion and a quarterstaff.
Okay.
It's giving Andy Dwyer, like Model UN. Like I traded them all of our army for the lions, and you're like, okay.
I still really
what
want
are
to know
lions
how
gonna do in a battle? I'm like, what are we doing?
No, I mean, I'm thinking because it's an ether construct, so I'm thinking it's like like Cell with his hellhounds or whatever. But
But then you have to try to maintain focus on a lion while also trying to hit people with his staff.
But maybe it's easy for them because that's their.
Why is it not like a moose?
I don't know.
What are the major?
Why is it not a moose?
Okay,
because lions are
something that's bothered me for so long.
Asia and Africa.
Right. How did lions become sigils in Great Britain in the olden times? Because how did they know about some dang lions? It's like having an elephant as a sigil. Like, why would you have that? Like, what is I doing there? How did lions become, like, did they just, like, when was the earliest, like, zoo? Like, how did that become part of freaking, like, family sigils? It boggles my mind.
Why am I Googling animals native to England only? Well, it actually needs to be Wales. They could have a puffin. They could have had a bat. There's a lot of bats.
They had wolves. I'm like, wolves would be more prominent than lions. I don't understand why this happened this way.
Well, hold up.
Dolphins, a deer. That's what I'm thinking. A deer.
I'm in the Royal Mint. I'm in www.royalmint.com. I'm like, just to cite my sources, but it says the lion is one of the earliest animals to appear in royal emblems, the traditional symbol of bravery, strength, and valor. The first recorded use was the gift of a blue shield decorated with the small golden lions given to Geoffrey by Henry I as he married Henry's daughter Matilda in 1127.
Caught some lions, how did Henry get the lion? Them to a rich white man?
As long as England has had a shield of its own, it's always featured a lion in some form.
But where did they get the lion? Who stole the lion?
By 1127, it's not like they were cut off from the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that they were cut
off.
There's
a whole ocean. There's ocean.
No, it's just the Mediterranean.
Yeah,
like
not to get to Asia.
It's not like they weren't in Africa
like
at that time. They just weren't. Yeah, it's not like they were like.
I'm not worried about how they got.
It wasn't the 16th century. It was like earlier, but they were still crossing. And I'm sure, like, when was the
Silk Road and all that stuff.
That was the 1400s,
Yeah, like,
the 13 and 1400s.
I understand that they know of the lion. I'm saying, how did the lion get a place of
prominence?
Like,
because they saw it and they said that's a majestic ass beast.
But
you were able to catch it in a cage. So
imagine having a magical ether stag or deer with them fucking antlers. That's what I'm saying. A moose, like, mooses are killers. Y'all don't fuck with a moose. They're huge. They will run.
Bears. Why not a bear? Bears.
Why not a bear? I don't think they have bears in Wales either, though. They don't have bears.
Yeah, I don't think they have bears.
Bears?
I think
no.
I just feel like in this case it makes sense because again they're from the British.
They got a lot of bats and toads. Toads are deadly.
Lions are seen as like brave, valorous, like all of those things.
Bottlenose dolphins are priority species. I'm on Wikipedia.
Do they embody the same like?
But they make stuff up. They're making this up. They're making
adder.
Of course they are. But my point is that at the point that they decided that the lion was going to be the thing, like
they made it up.
But all of this is made up. Like, what do you mean? We make everything up. That's what I'm saying.
Like they made lions be like these majestic beasts or whatever in their mythology. Like they could have picked
and that's why he gets a lion.
They could have picked any animal.
It could have been a deer, which is native.
But they chose the
deer easily prey, so I say no for that. But I'm like something that
I'm saying deer get hit on the side of the road.
Right,
but they have the antlers. I'm thinking about the
it don't matter.
We should move on.
We should move on.
Oh,
I'm just glad to know this has also been a curiosity point for other people because I feel like how in the world did lions?
Somebody wrote a study about it probably.
Yeah, we should figure that out because
I can't.
It's fine. I just think that like the antlers of a majestic deer have the visuals. Maybe they're prey or whatever, but they got the visuals. And then
I don't know. The Lannisters really like
Baratheons took
the Baratheons up.
The Baratheons.
The Lannisters
talking about getting sucked by your own petard. Like that's Baratheon house all the way down. Like,
and the Lannisters got them. They the lions. I'm just saying.
That's
even wolves. Wolves are that, dude.
That's what I said, but that's what I said earlier.
So, lions aside, even though we all agree that that is appropriation, Sel comes in to demonstrate using that quarterstaff. He looks super angry. Bree is like, "Ooh, you in trouble now," and is doing a demo fight. I forget what those are called.
Demonstration.
It's a demonstration, but like those when they spar.
Yeah.
With Owen, Liege Owen, and Bree is like, "Oh, he's showing out. Like he's showing up and out."
I mean, and there's also we talked about a couple episodes ago about like the triangle and how it's like at first Nick was the point of the top point, and now it's like this is where it's starting to turn to Bree. But Bree has been paying, she only just started not hating him, but
she's been paying,
obviously, as we know, she's been paying a lot of attention to him. So she knows that she's like, to anyone else, he looks like his normal broody stoic self, but I can tell it's just a front. His casting smells acrid and sharp in my nose. Sel is furious.
She has and then the fact that like this boy from the beginning
for hella long, like
she's been trying to kill her.
Okay, but she knows what the different scents mean. Like,
sir,
ma'am. But also she realizes that after Bree and like her, she's her walls have been shattered after that interaction with Mariah and Patricia, and so she's angry and grieving, and so she sees her anger, sees Sel's anger, and it's like we see each other, we good, like she's feeling drawn to that. And I think that it's one of the like tenets of like a love triangle, or a hinge, if we want to call it. Either way, like
I think it's starting to
of you being like drawn to specific like features of a person, or you know what I mean? Like Bree very clearly has feelings for Nick, and it's a much more like, it's very fast, it's very like intense right away, and it's like, you know, just mutual attraction, and they have their little magical thing that they don't know about yet. And then in this case with Cell, it's like, I understand his anger, I'm drawn to that, I feel sympathy for that, and I kind of want to, like, part of her is like, I just want to be mad like him, like, let's just be mad, you know what I mean? So like, it's just, they're very different things that draw her to each of them. And I think this is definitely where you start to see that, because he's no longer trying to murder her.
Yeah, and I do think that there's also a, you know, I think we've already gotten to where she's tried to talk to Nick about it. There's like a misunderstanding too. And I think that also draws Bree into where it's like, especially after what's happened with Patricia and Mariah, it's like, okay, you're, I understand, I maybe not agree with his methods, but I understand his motivation. Like she said, like, I am lying, I am a distraction, and like, he does have like almost like a higher calling, and she feels a kinship to that too, because like, she's lying and all this, but her search for what happened to her mother and her like desire for revenge to her feels like a higher, like, it excuses, or it explains that that need and that drive. And so I think that also draws her to Cell, kind of like, not just that he's broody and, you know, whatever, but also that people don't understand, or that they explain away, or just are like, you know, he's fraught, or I forgot what William said, volatile, you know. But she's like, but no, he has like
reasons to be that way.
Reasons, and they're valid, and you should like understand and respect those reasons. Which is, I think, what she kind of probably wants to say to Patricia and Mariah. She's like, I have reasons for being in the order, and they're valid, and you should respect them. Like, I understand.
Which I think she kind of does. And it's not that they're kind of like, I don't know. I don't think they really.
I think that what they
get a chance to like
is like, I understand your reasons, but it's not worth the risk, or like the reward isn't worth the risk. And
yeah,
I think that's the kind of the same thing with Nick, of like, I understand Cell's reasonings, but like the methods were not worth the tactics that he used, or like the results were,
and also like, I don't,
and he was wrong.
Yeah. Right. It's
giving.
That's the thing. If he had been right, it would have been it would have been moot. But since he was wrong,
he had to take that L.
Yeah.
It's giving that Cell is the Lil Wayne to Bree's Solange and Mad. Like, they just both mad.
Oh my god. No, for real.
They may not be mad about the same things, but they're both mad at the same time. And so
mad about something. Yep.
So Cell is kind of showing off in his like spar against Owen, and then injures him. Gillian takes him.
The injury is so out of pocket, because Owen didn't do nothing to him, as far as I know.
He's just trying to,
he got to be there. But he got to be there. He got to be there.
He's there.
So
he said, "Cell, you gonna help fight?"
Cell said, "Oh, I have to portray the demon." Also, it doesn't help that like Bree has been calling him Crossroads Child, and people have been threatening him with like losing himself to the demon left and right. So
he's like, "You want demon time?
Yeah,
I'll give it to you.
Don't ask for demon time and then be upset when it's here."
Yeah.
So then they start to like pair off Jillian. That G.
Jillian.
I want to say Gillian every single time, but it's Jillian. It might be Gillian.
Like Gilligan, like Gilligan's Island.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know her or her life. Jillian pairs herself with Bree so that she can not just like, everyone else is kind of just like sparring. They have the training, they know what they're doing. They've already been taught how to use these weapons. Bree is, as Jillian called her, basically a baby needs to stumble before they can learn to walk, and she is like, but also she's correct.
It's so funny because it's like Jillian is like, if Bree wasn't, very angry and grieving and just, not having a good time, I think she would appreciate it more.
Yeah.
She's like, everyone's calling me baby, outsider. They're calling me, what is it?
Right. She messing with I'm in pain. Like, I hate this. Like,
my ankle hurt.
Silly. I'm not playing with this. But also, I like the context that Jillian said that in, because she's basically saying, because like Bree was noticing that she was like how tired and how hurt she was, like physically, after their initial sparring. And then Jillian was like, okay, now we can work on footwork. And Bree was like, shouldn't we have started working on footwork from the beginning when I was like in better shape for it? And Jillian was like, no, you got to crawl before you walk. And it's like, wow, like literally, she feels like crawling on the ground right now. But nah, she's got to figure out her walking while she feels awful.
Okay, no, but now I'm mad because Jillian could have literally said, you got to crawl before you walk. And that would have been the end of it. And that like would not have. She said, babies learn to walk faster on tile than on carpet. Now you have the incentive to get the footwork right.
Yeah.
And all Bree heard was, you just called me a baby.
Yep. But the real lesson is I'm putting you in a dangerous situation for your body, so your body learns how to be in a dangerous situation.
Right, because it's like you're going to be fighting these other people who are not going to go easy on you. And then if you get past this trial, which we all kind of know you probably won't, you're gonna have to fight demons. So you got to be able to do this while also being injured or sore, or it makes sense. It's like
it does make sense. I'm just saying she could have used different weapons.
And it's also concerning too when you remember that she's the nice one. She's one of the nice ones.
Is.
She's one of the ones who didn't abuse Nick. Like Nick actually messes with her and trusts her, and she's this tough. And she wasn't out here breaking their phones. So
she also
like
so they're like, she's learning, she's getting her butt kicked. Nick comes in after the training. Nick asked Jillian how she's doing. And Jillian's like, she's good. She reminds me of you when you were 8. Like, goddamn.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that was when Nick started his training, and Bree is starting her training today. So it's the same. It's a synonym.
I mean,
she's about as good as you were when you were 8. And then Nick is like, well, on the plus side, William is waiting. So she goes and gets healed up. This is like one of the things that I was like a little bit interested in, is like she understands like the debt, the cost of using ether and stuff. She even like notices when she's on that memory walk, like, oh, William healed me completely, and like this lady healed enough so that she was no longer in like life-threatening danger, but like now her body can heal herself. And I'm wondering, like, she then just goes back to like, yeah, William, like take these 8 away, because she's not in like she's training hard, but like just, I mean, I guess she's in college, so she can't just like go get in a bath of Epsom salt or something like that. But you know what I mean? Like, get some icy hot, girl. Like, why are you using ether? But I mean, I guess if it's already bound to him, why not?
Yeah. I guess he's gonna use it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Dating's already coming for him. Hate to say
it, but yeah. That night, Bree dreams of her mother. She dreams of herself wearing shining ether armor while regents kneel before her. That is foreshadowing. Remember that scene in her dream. She dreams of looking down at Nick and reaching out for him, but he pulls away from her like a stranger. She dreams of herself in a graveyard, hands smeared in blood. She dreams of all this stuff. She wakes up, rested. She slept until noon and realizes, well, goes back to, avoiding Patricia and Mariah, and also realizes though, like, oh, I am in college. I do have like an English test that I haven't studied for. I have like these things. So she gets ready to go to the library, which is a great avoidance tactic while also being productive, dear reader or dear listener. Something you don't want to deal with, go to the library. But Patricia is standing outside of her dorm with her phone, looking like she's about to call her again. And they have a confrontation. And Patricia tells her that basically she's worried about her and she thinks that Bree is suffering from, well, she was looking at Bree as if she was just handling bereavement or like grief, but she believes that she's suffering from something closer to traumatic grief called persistent complex bereavement disorder, and explains to her what that is and what that means, and says like it's obvious that like what Patricia was trying to do, which was therapy married with teaching her about rootcraft and her like ancestors and her people, isn't going to really work because Bree doesn't actually want help processing her loss. Bree snaps that like her mom is not lost, she was murdered, which is like, and then insert the Oprah gift of like, you're proving my point type of thing.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's the like it comes up again, maybe not in this chapter, I'm trying to remember, but like she has guilt around her mom's death. And we saw it at the very beginning of the story, and up until now, she's focused her energy on being mad at somebody else. She doesn't know who, but she's been focusing that guilt and anger that she actually has at herself on this mystery person who may or may not have something to do with her mom's death. And so it's like this moment where again, like Patricia can kind of see, like she says, like you don't talk about your mom. And it's not because like, yeah, you talk about how she died and how you want to punish whoever
is responsible,
may have been involved in that, but you're not actually getting to the actual root of the problem. Is like you're angry with yourself, so you're stuck on that moment and not so much on the other moments that you had with her. But you know, she is not in the space to hear that right
to
now.
Receive that, or she
yeah.
doesn't. She also doesn't see clearly enough what Patricia is trying to say. So Patricia says, rootcraft is used for healing, protection, and self-knowledge, but you don't want healing, protection, or self-knowledge. You want revenge. You want justice. And so even with like Patricia like admits, like, yes, I've been doing this a little bit unorthodox, right? Like this isn't the grief counseling that I would give to like any like other UNC early college student because of your past and because of like the connections that you have. She thought that she could help reprocess her grief and connect her to the rootcraft community, but it's clear that Bree is just not on a path to healing. And so she says there comes a time when even passive support turns to endorsement, and I won't endorse what you're doing with the order. I can't. And so she lets her know that she's going to reach out to her father and suggest a different therapist, in which case Bree like reels in like immediate like, oh, you're dumping me, you're
abandoning me,
getting rid of me, like, and feels like the sense of abandonment, which is like, girl, your therapist is staring you straight in the eye. But I get it. Like, you can't see what you can't see, and you can't process what you can't process until you're ready. So, and so Patricia is like, there is Patricia said, like, I thought I could ease you through grief by connecting you to your mother and our community, but I made a mistake. I brought the craft into our sessions when perhaps I shouldn't have, particularly as your mother never brought you into the fold herself. And then says, I want you to figure out who you are. We all deserve that answer and the journey it takes to find it. But I fear for you, Bree, and the path you have assigned yourself. I know that the Order, for what they're worth, has worked for centuries to rid our plane of the creatures who cross over and take material form. They may fight monsters, but they aren't protectors. And she says, we call bloodcraft a curse because power taken and not returned incurs a debt, and the universe and the dead will always come to collect, one way or another. The Order has tied power to their bloodlines for hundreds of years. Tell me, Bree, how large do you think their debt is? Do you know how they pay it? The only currency that bloodcraft accepts is suffering and death. And this goes back to like what we were talking about earlier with like, Bree, you're on this path where after a while you don't have any other choice. You're tied to the Order and you're tied to like what they're doing. If you make it through this trial and you become a scion, like, and you take these oaths, or like, the longer you stay in the orbit of the Order, you inevitably are going to start collecting their debt as well. And so Patricia's saying, like, as a therapist, I can't sit by and watch you do this, because that's an endorsement of something that is like not only just unhealthy, but like is dangerous. And like, you know, I'm honor bound, I'm oath bound. She's also oath bound in like her oath as a therapist to like not allow for her to harm herself or others, you know? And so she reaches for Bree's hand, gives it a final brief squeeze, and leaves her. And that's where we end the chapter.
Also, from Patricia's perspective, we don't know yet that Bree's bloodcraft is Arthur, is the actual like scion thing. So as far as Patricia knows, the longer Bree's with the Order, the more she's going to burn herself out from both ends, from the rootcraft side and from the abatement and Order side of it too.
Yeah, I don't think Patricia's even knows. I mean, she told them about her mage flame coming out of her arms and stuff, but I don't think that they've actually understood that is bloodcraft yet. They have no idea, right?
Well, I think Patricia, that was like the theory, that it was, but they didn't get a chance to really explore it because
she
Bree
ran
couldn't
away.
connect to her ancestors.
Yeah.
So it was like that was what they were trying to find out, and then they didn't get there. But it's the suspicion, but not like
it's a theory, but it's not a proven.
Yeah, it's not proven.
It's a hypothesis, but it's not a proven theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a new year, and we're so excited to bring you all kinds of nerdy and creative content, but we can't do that without your support.
Becoming a B&C baddie helps us with the general upkeep of our site, upgrade equipment, and invest in the team's creative development.
Go to help out your favorite nerds and stay for cool perks like monthly live streams, behind the scenes, and bonus content, and more. If supporting Black creators sounds like your bag, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/blacknerdscreate. So Bree is, again, still not having a great time and is dwelling on what, like, her conversation with Patricia, but then she gets to the training room and those thoughts kind of fall to the wayside when she realizes that, like, something's happened. So it turns out that yesterday afternoon, William barred Sel from performing the Warrior's Oath to bond Sarah and Tor until he calmed down, which then only made Sel even more angry. And then after that, Nick, Sel, and Lord Davis were overheard on a tense phone call that lasted late into the night. There was shouting, even a scuffle. It ended with Sel smashing a chair and storming out of the front door. No one's seen Nick since. So Sel's breaking down, Nick is breaking down, Bree is breaking down. Everybody's having a bad time. And, it's all Lord Davis's fault. Not all of it. Bree, I would say Bree is responsible for getting herself in this situation, but all this other stuff is like Lord Davis has decided he wants to speed up Camland, and as such, all of the like tensions and issues that folks have with each other are becoming heightened because they're all stressed that they're gonna have to like fight in this eternal war. When really the most they should be worrying about right now is school in classes.
And the trials could be a thing to worry about, but they should have the amount of time, the 6 weeks that is supposed to be dedicated to the trial.
Right. And the 6 weeks was already accelerated.
Right.
So this is like extra.
This is like
fast.
all like a week and a half. Like, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah, they have not had that much time to process. And also in a week and a half, 2 people in the Southern chapter have been awakened.
Yeah.
So
right.
And just the Southern chapter alone, like there's
we talked about like numerous times, like Cell is they don't have any other Merlins here, so Cell is stressed.
No, Cell is, and that's the thing. Like he's the King's Mage, not the.
But he's both.
He's not.
Sadly, he's both.
They gotta do them both. Like y'all can't bring in somebody else.
Why can't there be a chapter mage?
Or something. Everybody just got
a regional
mage.
What are the other regional mages where there's like one that's like roams the couple that roam the region or something like something?
Yeah, because like you got all the other Merlins training and then going to do their little Black Ops missions against Shadowborn, but somebody I'm sure could come and be like, all right, I'm gonna manage just the chapter stuff. Like why is Cell supposed to protect Nick specifically and lead all of the raids against Shadowborn across the campus? Like that just doesn't make sense.
It really is it's a sticking point that we keep coming back to.
We keep coming back to, but it's like this boy is overworked. He still has class.
He really
But
is.
no, what I'm thinking about it is like even if it wasn't like Camlin was coming, having a chapter mage and a King's Mage, when it's like normal behavior and Daddy Davis ain't around opening gates, like Cell can obviously like help the chapter mage, but then in a heightened moment, so you have 2 people just helping
at least
like patrol and do all that stuff at least. And then when it becomes more heightened, they can like split off and, prioritize.
Yeah.
Like, all right, you got the running of
it was like at the end of the day, Nick, Cell's primary oath is to Nick. So then not that like obviously like most of the Shadowborn are coming after Nick. So in some ways the things are like they can be conflated or consolidated or whatever, but like still, what if you got a thing all the way across campus, but Nick is also in danger? So you have your awakened scions or whatever, but still, it's not making sense.
And if you think about it, too, like Nick can be upset with Cell and his methods, but like he didn't break his oath going after Bree. He's like, my primary oath is to make sure that I investigate all of these threats. It's what he explained to Bree when they were in that tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. So like, you can be upset with my method. But like it's the method, but he also was actively going after it,
and he knows he was violent.
Yeah, like it was both. He was technically following the letter of the law, if not the spirit.
Not the spirit, yes. But he definitely like could make that argument, right? So
and he does, like, and does. Do you think you're trying to imply that Merlins can't be in the same proximity with each other for an extended amount of time?
Ooh.
I don't think. I mean, maybe, but I feel like we've seen other Merlins together, at least in Bloodmark.
Right, but we don't know how long they actually like work together.
It felt like they had like squads. I mean, we'll get to it in more depth when we get to Bloodmark, but it felt like they were in like. Oh, sorry. The only thing I could think of is like S.H.I.E.L.D., but it felt like they were in like crews. You know what I mean? They had a team.
When you said squad, I think about Squirtle Squad, and it's a very funny picture for Merlins to be the squad with the shades.
Okay, so they get to training before Bree can check in with Nick to see what's going on. But again, things keep getting worse. Cell and Jillian demo the longsword. Bree sucks at the longsword, which is ironic, but again, she just got here. But it's also ironic considering who she is. She's getting, there's a point where she is fighting Witty and she gets disarmed. Jillian is shouting at her. He's like, you have no stamina, Matthews. What if your scion needed you? You think you would have time to call... do you think you could call time with a Gwilgi? It's definitely not how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
On your heels. And Bree wants to scream that she has no idea what that is. At which same,
she's DW. She's like, that doesn't mean anything to me because I can't read it. Like, what is it?
Exactly.
So yeah, so then she gets home and she like kind of has to, Alice is back, so she has to lie about what she's been doing. But it's pretty close to the truth. She says is like a scavenger hunt, obstacle courses, team building crap, like, which is not wrong,
Untrue.
but
Yeah.
it's not untrue, but definitely worse. Then she gets a text from Nick before she like right as she's going to sleep. His dad sent a plane for him so that to join him at the northern chapter and then show face at other chapters. Things are getting worse up there, just like at UNC, gates opening where they haven't seen them before. But he'll be back for Thursday's trial. He tells her to trust Jillian, and is like, you got this, which is great. Lord Davis is really, he's just doing a lot. He's really been traveling so much so that he can open these gates.
Yeah.
But
it was really funny because I was thinking about that when I like read that part too. I'm like, oh yeah, there's more gates opening there. Interesting. I wonder.
At the same time that Lord Davis.
Yeah, you're there because
Right.
because more gates are opening up, or are more gates opening up because you're there?
Come on.
Were you silent?
Yeah.
Or were you silent?
Be silent. So then Monday with the daggers is far worse than Sunday with the long sword. It's funny because Bree, again, is having a hard time, but she's also like, she's a sore loser. So it's like compounded. Like, so she has to keep reminding herself that she doesn't care about this. And like, she's not even trying to be a part of the order. And, that's she's just like, I don't even care. This doesn't even matter anyway. I'm just trying to do this for my mom. But then she keeps losing and it's making her mad because she's losing.
It's classic talented kids issue where she's she's so good at like academic stuff. She's so good at so much stuff that she just like, when she's not good at a thing, she's like, you know what, F it. Like, if I'm not automatically good at it, it's not for me. And as someone who does it a lot, I see you. I'm with it.
Sounds like
exactly.
But it's funny though, and it doesn't. You said what?
Why might they be catching strays?
I don't know, but she's not in here.
It sounds like Ami.
When you live the life, you know what you do. And as someone who lives there,
it's a conversation I have at least once a week. So, but yeah, no. So, and I think also, obviously, it doesn't help that like Vaughn and Blake and even Sydney now are like, watching smugly and like
snickering
and being like nasty about it. And then of course, Cell is there watching, and Bree is feeling self-conscious about the fact that Cell is watching. And so she's having a hard time is all I can really say about this chapter. So then Wednesday is also bad. She spars with Sydney, and Greer tries to give her a little bit of like a tip, I guess, saying that like Bree is taller than Sydney, and she has a longer reach, so Sydney knows that and will go for the sweep, which like is helpful, but Bree also doesn't have the like agility to really. So it's like one of those things that you're seeing
or the
with
muscle
Spar,
memory
like,
to like,
or the muscle memory, exactly. So like. Yeah, and so like Sydney, again, you just see that somebody who's trained for a long time has a better like muscle memory, strategy, like can kind of think on their feet quicker, where there are moments where like Bree knocks Sydney down but then doesn't follow through because she's not thinking as quickly. So in the end, Sydney wins. Yeah. So a few days ago, Sydney would have helped her up if begrudgingly. Now she smirks and walks away. So the competition, like their camaraderie that they kind of forged a little bit after the first trial is gone. Sydney's like she's just back to being,
She's like, I don't traffic with little babies who can't actually fight. I'm sorry, I said baby. And she
right. Nice. Are you talking about
me? I am almost 2
years
old. I am almost about a month to go.
How dare!
I be telling my brother, because he'll be like, "I'm not a baby." I'm like,
yes,
sir, the way you just said that, it's giving baby.
You basically explain they're not babies? I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, so she moves on, and again, Bree sees Cell looking at her again, and she's embarrassed because he watched her fail horribly. Practice ends. Jillian mentions that they can use the rooms at any time if they want to practice before tomorrow's trial. Sort of, pointedly looks at Bree, but leaves it at that. She's like, you can it's open at any time. Bree's about to meet Greer at the door, feels Cell looking at her, realizes that he's kind of like he's waiting to talk to her, and so she's like, all right, I'm gonna stay, and they have a conversation. So he waits. So Greer's like, are you sure you want to be here with Cell? And Bree's like, yeah, it's fine. And so then he waits until Greer like disappears down the hall to then like be right behind her, because this he's not serious. He's not a serious person. Do you want to be Squire? His voice is inches behind me, and I yelp even though I should expect his silent approach. Say at this point. Like he just out loud.
Vampire.
Literally. So I love this moment of like, so we talked about last episode about how Cell finds out she's not a threat and then immediately just like disregards her. Is like, you're not worth my time, you're silly, I'm bored by you, like all of this. And it's only been like a couple days, and now he's suddenly like pretending like he's not interested, but he's definitely interested at this point. Like, you've been sitting here watching her for this like for the last 4 or 5 days.
Well, he's left. To be fair, he has left after his like.
Okay, so he's been watching her for the last like couple days. Yeah. Like he was watching her yesterday, and he's watching her today. Even when he doesn't have to like do any demonstrations, he's still like watching. So then he asks, "Do you want to be a Squire?" Bree kind of thinks about like she's having a hard time figuring out how to answer, because she does so that she'll be powerful enough to demand an audience and the truth from the regents. But does she want to fight the war? Is the question. And so Cell kind of sees that conflict in her eyes and is like, it's a yes or no question. She says yes. He hums, and then he turns, he throws his jacket off, he grabs, he's sitting in the middle of the room, like warming up or whatever, and Bree's like, what's going on? He says, I've decided that watching you fail this spectacularly is too painful to bear. Get over here. And I'm just like,
excuse you.
He's trying. No, it's just like he's trying so hard to pretend like he doesn't care, but clearly he cares a lot. He's bothering him.
That's why I feel like he chose, like, yes, he did have a plan and strategy in place to try to like confront Bree with Hellhound for that challenge, but he also was like, I get to bully Bree, no one else. It's just me. And how did I can call her a little baby and get away with it, but y'all can't get away with calling her a little baby.
I can laugh at her ineptitude, but you like the whole chapter laughing at her.
No. I draw the line at anyone else but me being able to call her
literally
silly.
Because then she's like, when she's like, huh? He goes, I'm offering to train you, silly thing. Like, why are you calling her silly? Be for real. Be serious.
He knows it. He knows it goes her. He knows it gets her go, and he's figured. It's the one thing. That's the funniest thing to me is that she can read him down, but he just finds the one thing, and then he keeps pressing on it. She can just read anything about him. Mm-hmm. No, he's like, I got one thing, nope. And one thing only, and I'm gonna use it every time.
I'm gonna use it. So he kind of gives a further explanation, saying that he says, let's just say I'm not particularly fond of bullies at the moment and the way they attack others' weaknesses. So again, he's been watching her. He's been watching Vaughn and Blake and Sydney and how they've been just like nasty to her during this time. And so I think, like, obviously, again, like we were saying, like only he's allowed to be mean to her, I guess.
Only he can put baby in the corner.
And so
whenever, right? And so, I've never watched that movie, but I've heard that phrase.
You're like, I know that phrase.
Yeah.
Very good.
And it's also like, again, in the
quote, by the way.
Yeah. And it's like, even though he, like, in the same way that she was kind of feeling a connection to him when, like, with like their anger and stuff, like he also is finding it's like he's kind of aligning himself with her in the sense of like when he's referencing bullies, he's talking about at the very least Lord Davis, and probably Nick,
Yeah.
And definitely the regents, and you know what I mean? So it's one of those moments where he's feeling like he understands the situation that she's in, and because of like the anger and the issues that he's been dealing with recently, it just feels a lot more like they have that connection point. But again, it's very funny because he was just one of her ops like not 5 days ago, so the switch up is so real. Like
that's what I'm saying.
so,
like he is very much mad. She's Solange and he's Lil Wayne, and they got plenty to be mad about, and they're just to get mad together.
So funny. And even still, like there are these little moments where like, so he says, he calls her an obstinate creature, which again, this vocabulary is hilarious. But he says, "Come here, I'm serious, I swear it." And so Bree kind of makes that connection again between him and Nick, and like I think she calls them echoes. Like they're very similar in a lot of ways. They have like even though they seem very different, they definitely like mirror each other. And so yeah, that was like kind of the last thing she notices. And then she actually lets him train. They talk briefly about her magic abilities, and he's like, "You haven't tried to like learn how to control your and yeah, but he's like, "I can still assist you, ether furnace or not." And so he's not going to help her win, but lose less terribly. So again, like how Nick said, you have to lose well. You don't necessarily have to win. So yeah, that's where we leave off.
I think those echoes between both him and Nick saying you gotta lose better, and then also the swearing thing is good. And I think that parallel for them both saying that you need to learn how to lose well is like them not getting her hopes up for like not don't get cocky. Like even if you do get good, like let's not like over like complicate your thoughts and make you think you can like actually win. Like you might be able to win, but I'm not even gonna put that on you. We're gonna make you not lose badly.
And also it's funny because it's like you did this the night before the trial.
Right? Yeah.
I know it probably took time to like decide that you're not gonna be, you know, you're gonna actually be interested in her or whatever. But
I think he was holding to see as she was actually. He's like, she
got all this
air in her body. She's not gonna actually use it. Like he's like actually like waiting to see like maybe she'll push further far enough she would actually use it. And he's like, she really just gonna walk around here with the ability to punch a hole through a freaking hellhound and then not even like use it. It's like that sound is like, stop being so nice and show everybody how crazy you are. And he's like, let's show everybody how crazy you are. Come on.
But I think it's also, I mean, because he kind of says like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to like turn you in, right? But I think
that's more passive.
Yeah, but I think he also like when he found out about like, you know, the mage flame and stuff, like, oh, she has no control over it. And so if she's getting beat up, it'll just happen. So I think he was wondering if she would kind of like tell on herself. And then since she hasn't burst in the mage flame and been dragged away into the dungeons, he's like, well, now I can't just watch you continue to go through this, get embarrassed.
As another mage flame user, this is sad. So it's funny because we go from like that to directly into seeing how Bree feels about that combat training that she had last night with Cell. It at least gives her hope. And even throughout the whole practice session, she never reproduced the mage flame. So she thinks that she has a handle on it. But she feels like, I guess, like slightly less like a baby, if anything. And they are at this like pre-party ahead of the trial, and she finally sees Nick after his return from the Northern Chapter. And during her check-in with Nick, it certifies that he too is moving mad, just as as she and Cell are. And not only are they both moving mad, they are like sharing like similar like rhythm and like heartbeat and like breathing patterns and stuff, and so they're like and physically in tune.
Yeah. And the moment where he's like, when she like tells him that, one, I like that she tells him that she was trading with Cell and not like keeping that a secret. I feel like that would, but the fact that he gets mad and he's like, I ordered him not to. I'm like, you and Cell need couples therapy. Like,
really?
Patricia can't help you. Like, Bree don't need to tell you about her. Like, Patricia don't need to be in this mess, but somebody, maybe she can give you a reference, because
y'all don't have like a Merlin who's good at psychology, like something.
Seriously, a family therapist. Talk to William. I don't know, but get it.
Somebody.
So yes, Nick is still mad at Stell, and Bree is like honestly mad right now, and who she's focusing on as her target of anger is Patricia for like dumping her in her mind. And it's her anger at Patricia is triggered when she's having a moment of like reliving how angry she is, and Nick is trying to like get her to a more peaceful state, and by saying like take deep breaths, it reminds her of like how Patricia does therapy and tells her to take deep breaths, and she just like gets even like madder and then like targets Nick a little bit with her anger, because he also says calm down. And to be fair, as someone who's been socialized like as a woman, right, when people tell you to calm down, it's like, do you know how much it took me to get my anger to show? Like, you know how much I had to turn down my anger multiple times and clamp it down for this one time for it to flare up. You're going to try to tell me to calm down? That's the answer. So I understand calm down being like the worst thing to say to somebody when they're angry. But at the same time, it's like, you know that
you actually do kind of need to calm down,
right? Like, it's a flare of like, this is not the place nor the time. That's also not the situation. Like,
and
you're not actually like mad about anything that's happening right now. You're mad about something else outside of this.
And it's also the sense of like within this context. And again, not to like this. Bree is reacting how she's reacting, and it's fine. You know what I mean? But he also is. Like the first thing he says is, you're hurting and I don't know what to do. Please tell me what to do. And like, obviously, yes, there are, like she says, like, I don't think there's anything you can do. But he's not coming to it in a sense of like trying to suppress her emotions. He's just trying to help her like get through it in a way, and like trying to support. And like, yeah, it's a fumble. Like, I need that. She doesn't need that, but
that's also angering as well. Is like for someone to want to like say they want to help you, but instead of like, I understand asking the person what to do that can help, but someone's like, if I have to tell you how to help me, then it's not going to work, because like I'm not in a place where I can tell you how I can be helped. Like, it's just, I can't do that right now. I don't have the spoons.
And it's also like it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like, it's not like, it sucks. I personally hate it. Like, there's not really anything to be done here. A lot of what has to be done here is on Bree. And so it's like, you know, you can be here and try to like, just, you know, you can just be here. I think that is helpful. I think the way that he pivots is, I guess, helpful. It appeals to other things as well.
And that pivot, let's just talk about that. His pivot is, here's my room key. You can just meeting in my bedroom, part 2. Once the trial is over and I'm out, like, I'm gonna be gone, but you can just let yourself in, and then I'll let myself in after you let yourself in, and then
girl, this is a family friendly pod.
He said I can't help you with the emotions right now, but I can maybe help you later.
I can give you some other emotions in the future. You know what I'm saying?
If you feel like that's helpful for you.
And then they have this like back and forth moment of
like, is that really what he said? Is that really?
He has, and then they have a back and forth moment where they're like are you innuendoing me? Is this innuendo, or are you actually about it? Are you about it? I don't know. Are you about it? I don't know. And
then, I'm about it if you're like it's the same as like the other one where she's like when he's talking about her feminine wiles, and he's like, I'm sorry that people are saying shitty things to you, but you know, if you would like to do that, I just want to.
If your feminine wiles need to be unleashed, I'm willing.
If you feel like that's what you want to do,
consider my door open. Should you want to press on in? You know what I'm saying? It's already It's already open.
If you're not trying to, that's fine. But if you are trying to, that's also fine.
So
it's very cute and it's funny.
It's funny. And so like, and they notice that people start looking at them. So they have this exchange. It's very slow, and there's a flicker of the lights, and then they go in their opposite directions, with Bree going down to the prep area, thinking that she has at least one thing to look forward to. And again, that is meeting in the bedroom, part duh. So they get to the combat trial. The combat trial is actually not far from the chapel in the woods, not far from the lodge. And it's in a drawn circle in a ring. Every one of the pages, and there's 6 of them, are wearing the colors of the lines that they're representing that sponsored them. Bree, as she focuses in on like, I'm here for my family, not for these lines or whatever. And it's like, girl, your family is the line of Arthur. That's the shade.
She says it like twice, where she goes like, I think earlier in like one of the, I think the first chapter that we read today, she goes like, I'm my family's scion. And then this one, I only fight for my family. I'm like, girl, you're missing the point.
It's one and the same.
You're missing
it's a circle. It's not a line. It's not 2 points on a graph. It's a circle. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
You're like, yes, and
yep.
So each of the 6 pages are expected to enter the ring 3 times for a total of 9 matches overall. And here's a quick breakdown of who does what. Sydney beats Greer at quarterstaff, but then loses to Blake with longsword. Bree's first match is against Sydney with dagger, to which Bree loses. So that's Sydney 2-1, basically. 2-1. And then Whitty beats Blake with daggers, and then also beats Vaughn with quarterstaff, but loses to Greer with sword.
Vaughn, meanwhile, is throwing an entire tantrum. Like I was talking about
Weenie Babies.
What's his name? I was talking about Bree being a sore loser.
Yeah.
Vaughn is on other shit. Like,
he is the epitome of a sore loser.
He's not losing well.
He is not losing well.
Yeah, he's not a sports person. He doesn't have that.
Every scion is looking at him like, pass.
I don't even think I want him on my team. Like,
why is he allowed in the lodge?
Like, come on. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you think William is gonna pick you?
No.
Nick is already over you. Like, he's like,
you already did a racism.
I don't want to lift, bro.
You did racism to his candidate. Like, why would he? Like, you're.
He's not
clever.
Yeah,
he's not a clever kid.
No.
Also want to say that Vaughn's reactions. Like, I was thinking about this as like this is very much a classic case of why you should not build up in your head. Like, it's like, don't count your eggs before your chickens hatch. It's like, don't build out in your head a story for how things are supposed to go, because life doesn't always go the way you think it's supposed to go. And when you're disappointed in those things and you don't have the right outlet and ways to deal with those disappointments, you come off looking like and are a huge a-hole. And that is Vaughn to a T.
Yep.
So that's Vaughn. Wait. Vaughn is being an a-hole. And then not only... So Whitty's looking good. Also 2-1 with Sydney. We mentioned that Bree, his first match is with Sydney, where she loses with dagger. Her second match, however, is with Blake with quarterstaff, and she wins. And as she looks up, she looks for so she got affirmation from Nick when she first entered the ring. He smiled at her and kind of gives her like a pump up sign or whatever. Very much she's pastor kind of Nick that we keep talking about, that vibe. And for her, she's so in her head about like how she's unprepared in comparison to everyone else that just makes her more anxious. She's like, he doesn't realize how unprepared I am. He's not been here to see
me. He's like, he hasn't been sitting through these trials.
He's like confident in me. It's a false confidence because he don't know how bad I am. I'm trash. So initially, like he gives her like anxiety around, like when she looks at him, she feels anxiety. So when she looks up for affirmation after winning with Blake, she looks up at Cell, who classic Cell,
it's her sensei.
Spider monkey freaking behavior is up in the tree.
He's in the tree, isn't he? I get it. As an introvert, he's like, I'm not
I don't
trying to be
where
around
the
all
crowd
these people.
is.
They're all pissing me off,
Yeah,
and I just want to be. I want to watch. Obviously, I need to watch. I have to be here, but we're in the woods. I'm gonna be in a tree.
And to be fair,
like, don't talk to me.
Bree. That was also Bree's like starting move with her first trial. She was up in that tree too. So I feel like there's
it's like I'm with you.
it's a thing.
I will also say before the actual fight, before she actually fights Blake, there's the point where Blake is trying to like intimidate her, and she's just like, Cell has literally threatened to murder me on multiple occasions.
I've seen him rip a huge demon apart with his bare hands. You think you're gonna
and then threaten me immediately after that? Like, you with your little like baby snarl, it's giving nothing.
It's giving like a little fox like in the woods.
Like bruh, I've been mauled by hellhounds, so
come on. Hounds, foxes.
You're gonna have to come harder than that. You're gonna come a little bit harder. A little bit harder. So she wins that. Everyone's shocked. Like everybody looking around. Like first, I will say the first match with Sydney, she does well enough in the match with Sydney that people are looking at her like Pikachu open mouth. Like what?
Right, because the only reason she loses is because she steps out of bounds,
right.
Which she might have still lost after,
right.
but that's like
yeah.
But it also she made Sydney work for it.
Yeah.
And nobody expected her for
she loses well.
Yes.
Vaughn,
she's
note.
losing it and losing it and losing it well.
Wow.
Oh God. Was not expecting that.
No, me neither.
Sorry. So she does win to Blake. And again, that's another thing is that she lasts longer in the ring with Sydney than people expect. She lasts even longer in the ring with Blake. Like she's just like in there, and that's what wears Blake down and her to gives her time to get the offensive and take him out. And then her, I feel like did I talk about Greer? Has a match. Greer has lost to Vaughn with Dagger, and again. I forget. I didn't see. Oh yeah, and also lost to Sydney at quarterstaff. So is only successful, and so it's like 1 and 2 with beating Witty with the sword. I liked their interaction with Witty on the field. Like they went with it, like that. They're the best example of sportsmanship the whole trial. It was just really cute to see their like friendship, like just being like, oh, we're gonna spar, and whoever wins wins, and that's how Greer comes out. It's also sad that Greer is best with sword, and it's like Bree's going for that spot. So yeah. So speaking of going for that spot, in the sword, Bree's final match is with Vaughn, and it is.
It had to be done, obviously.
It really had to. It really
it's like
had
I
to.
hate this because he's gross.
Yes,
and I hate him.
But it had to be done, and I was offended by, and it's not a big offense, like whatever. But I was offended by the fact that like, whenever she and Vaughn are called for the last match, like the Scions murmur to one another, and it's like. She says she thinks apparently news of our rivalry has spread, but like I am offended by the thought of it being called a rivalry and not actually what it is. It's like Vaughn being a big racist bully to Bree, and Bree responding like in the manner that she should. Like her aggression is not out of like, oh, like we're just like sparring nemesis. Like no, he's literally a bad person, and she has to defend herself against a bad person. It's not a rivalry.
Right. Yeah.
That's something that always makes me really upset when people call something like rivalry or some sort of, like try to make it seem like it's like
even ground.
Yeah, like anytime
Serena
Williams is up against someone that she's beat 16 times and they won once and they're like the biggest rivalry in tennis. That's not
like
Serena's not
when has Serena ever mentioned thinking about you once in her life?
She not losing sleep over y'all.
This one time.
She not thinking about y'all. Y'all most of them you're doping up to make it to even get that 1 or 2 wins. Or she was pregnant or her, or hurt. So that's a big I hate that.
I hate it so much.
Let the rivalry be earned. Let's not.
Yeah, like it offends the actual like spirit of actual rivalry because those are interesting. Those are more nuanced and are interesting. When you put actual like hate or like just like an uneven ground as a rivalry, you're just undercutting the actual meaning of rivalry.
Yeah. And Vaughn immediately reminds us of that with like his
actions, because he's an a-hole.
misogynist. Yeah. Just racist, sexist, all of that.
The worst.
The worst.
Someone has been watching Parks and Rec lately.
Oh no, it's always on my mind. It's always there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna read through this part of the passage because it's like the where we are. So Greer and Whitty say something encouraging to Bree as she starts to go towards the ring, and Nick sits up as she passes the viewing area to pick her sword. She looks away from his worried expression before she can think too much about it, and she goes in and she faces Vaughn, who is prowling back and forth in the center of the ring, waiting for her, giving very much Donald Trump during the debate with Hillary Clinton, if you want to call that a debate. Like, just like in the space.
That was a crazy thing that happened.
It really was. I don't think people think of how absurd that was. It was absurd.
That's just a part of our national history. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then this is what Jillian has to do. This is how well Jillian knows his freaking kind of like emotions and how he works and operates. As soon as Bree steps onto the mat, Jillian calls for a clean match, and she looks at Bree saying the match is over when one opponent yields or steps or loses a weapon outside of the ring. And she looks at Vaughn and says, no headshots, because she knows he's a dirty player. The short high whistle starts, and then Vaughn sways in his stance, tossing his blade hand to hand cocky. Every time he catches the hilt under the crossguard, he shows his muscles and rolls his biceps, like tauntingly. And he says, no shame in yielding now, Matthews. And then again, and this like whole rivalry kind of like air, Greer cheers and says, don't listen to him, Bree. And I'm like, child, no, don't be doing this. Like, I get it, but no. And Bree says, I don't want to listen to Greer, but I can't help but I don't want to listen to Vaughn, but I can't help but hear his low mocking laugh. Can't help but notice his eyes meandering up her body, starting at her legs and then lingering over her hips and chest. Fine, he says, stay. So only that she can hear him. I don't mind the view.
See, and that is when...
That's him. I hate him.
And that is when you get...
I literally wrote...
I was already hated him when he walked before.
That is when you get a swift knee to the balls.
Yes.
Literally. Or to the face, right? Doesn't she get him to the face?
He deserves everything bad that ever happens to him. He deserves it. Every single thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 100%. Nothing he does will ever like redeem what he's doing. Like, he deserves every bad thing.
Agreed. 100%.
So we know what he's doing, right? He's trying to throw Bree off, but he's also just being himself. And Bree says that anger floods her in reaction to this, but she doesn't want to give him the satisfaction of an emotional and undisciplined attack. He shrugs as to say, have it your way, and then lunges at her. He strikes her quickly, and his big black blade, which also phallic and black, and he chose it. There's a lot of like undertones and stuff here. That whistles when it swings. She parries and then catches the broadside of his sword against the hardest part of her own sword, and they leap back. So he's swinging his thing around, smiling about being able to catch it and do all this kind of stuff with it. He surges forward, brings the blade down with an overhead strike. She raises her sword to block it, but then he stalls, leans back, and then kicks her hard in the stomach. This makes Bree stumble, and she has a dizzying cocktail of nausea and pain in reaction to it. Vaughn steps in, and she's barely able to turn her sword to meet the low hack that he does try to make at her legs. He then charges her again, swinging, and she makes an easy kind of basic step towards her, and it is at the same time she's starting to cough and blood comes and fills her mouth. Vaughn reacts with a feral humor in his eyes, and then Bree realizes what's actually going down. He had kicked her in his stomach strategically, and with every twist and stretch and pivot, it's harder for her to keep moving because of the internal bleeding she's having. He is toying with her. And this puts Bree in a white hot after Bree fury. Yeah.
She's like, nope.
She's like, the strategizing,
angry.
I've not been able. Yeah, she's like, I've not been able to be in a strategizing place for too long with training. Y'all are all above me on that. But what you're not gonna do
is out petty.
No.
Never.
That is in my bones.
I meant every silver-tongued barb I threw at you when I read you the other day, and I'm about to read you in this ring too. And so the world around her blurs in that same like Mr. Krabs meme blur. And next thing you know, Bree shifts her grip, preparing for a two-handed blow to his ribs, and then she remembers Sel's last lesson to her. Typical anger can hinder or help, but the kind that burns your gut, that's fury. And fury is meant to be used. So she picks up that like is putting her back in mind of
giving
training.
Melinda May.
Yeah. She puts her back in like the small amount of muscle memory she has from like training with Cell, and she's using that to twist and pivot and use the flat of her blade to smack his fingers and break his grip to his sword. Both of their swords fall to the ground, and Vaughn looks up shocked and then lunges for her, but she's already in the air. Spider monkey. His momentum carries him forward right into her flying knee, which makes his head snap all the way back. And if that's not just beautiful imagery.
Yeah, got him.
Got him.
His spine hits the mat, the blood streams from across his nose and mouth, and for a second the woods are completely silent. And then Russ, of all people, jumps to his feet and whoops, triggering a wave of shouts and applause. Vaughn rocks slightly, his hands covering his face. But guess what? He ain't getting up.
Period.
Knocked out. Just another TKO. There ain't no love there, but
no.
Right. And Jillian calls match to Matthews with an astonished smile. At some point, Nick had gotten up from his chair. I'm sure everybody was looking at her like, what?
Right, because Nick over here, he's looking
like,
so I know
biting his
that,
nails.
like, you know when you put your hands together and you're holding it. He's sitting there like this.
Oh, he's biting his nails. He's like,
hands up. He's doing the coach, you know, like the dad coach. That's what he's doing
on the sidelines, like the field goal.
He's like, then he's standing up. He's like, I just gotta. His arms were crossed. He was watching with his arms crossed. He was pressed.
So he'd gotten up from his chair and approached the outer ring. He stands there at the outer ring, feet just touching the red paint, wearing the most beautiful smile that Bree's ever seen. She takes a stumbling step forward, and triumph fizzes in her chest. She could burst with it. Nick's gaze locks into hers, his eyes widening, and then his smile falls. He roars her name, and then Vaughn's blade swings down in her peripheral vision. She hears a deep crack in her collarbone before she feels it. And when the pain comes, the darkness follows. They're shouting, and then there's silence.
People be getting hurt in this book. It's kind of crazy. Like, I know they have William, and so it's okay, but they be breaking bones. Like,
and I feel like they be doing things because they know William is there. They
already broke
William
some fingers earlier.
Yeah,
she broke some fingers just like a couple of days ago.
Training.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like
crazy.
They go hard because they know William is there. Like, I feel like if William wasn't there, they wouldn't.
That's what. Exactly. They're
maybe
like,
they
we're not.
Have a little bit
we
of
don't need any guards against us because we have a. Yeah. I wonder if the other chapters are as reckless with their. I mean, in this case, this was Vaughn, and again, fuck him.
The worst.
But like, just in general, I'm curious if they're as reckless with their trainings and stuff because they only have one scion of Gawain. Whew. Who's your MVP?
Bree. I just realized I didn't put it in.
Talk about it.
I mean, I just think that like there are times in which I worry about if Bree should be MVP. If we are, you know that like Toy Story where it's like that's not flying, that's falling with style. Like I feel like sometimes with Bree, I'm like, girl, like the swag with you are continuing to traumatize yourself and not get the help you need, but the swag in which you were doing it with can't be denied. This was like one of those
Yeah.
moments where like the earlier chapter 33 when she's like talking to Patricia and, you know, just being kind of obtuse about her own healing. And then like the way in which she's dealing with anger and like after Bree coming out with training and stuff like that. But she is able to like channel all of that and like come out on top ish. I still want her to get some help, but
Yeah. I'm of a similar thought. Like I made her my MVP. I like thought about Patricia, but she wasn't in it like a lot. So then I kind of felt like should I make her MVP? So I wasn't sure.
Well, Patricia was
and like
in
with Bree again, it's like
shout out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like no, you know, all bars, no losses. I think that there are ways that she could handle it better, but again, like I think she's also someone who like we've kind of seen time and time again. Again, Bree is my MVP, but just to talk about Patricia for a second, we've seen time and time again how she'll make a decision. She kind of realizes, oh, I didn't handle that correctly, or I could have done it differently, and she pivots. So like we'll see another pivot later too. So like I appreciate that about her. But with Bree, I do appreciate again, yeah, she needs help. She needs to heal, and obviously she's not in the space to do that right now, but her being able to take that and channel it into something that still like, you know, gets her closer to her goal, whether she should have that goal or not, you know. I think that she did a good job. Also, you know, Vaughn deserved that knee to the face.
Sure did.
That was a long time coming for him. It was destined in the cards, in the will of destiny. He needed that knee to the face.
He needed it.
He needed it. We needed it.
Everybody.
The universe needed it.
And speaking of Patricia, that is my my MVP. I feel like Patricia / Dr. Hartwood and all of us on Wizard Team are all in the same place. We are the Michael Jordan gif of like, stop, get some help, like. And I feel like Patricia like did something that was really hard, which is like she knows the place that Bree is in and the lack of support she has on campus to get those things done, and how she's in a very dangerous situation within the order, and still takes the necessary steps to try to. I don't know if it's like. It's just kind of like to set the bar, the minimum for Bree to like help her like see like through her own BSing or like her own like grief. Yes, all grief, like that's not BS, but like how she's like BSing herself by burying that grief in other things. And Patricia took the very necessary step of being like, hey, this is very destructive. This is not at all something that can be like, we can call you in practice if you're not actually going to be in practice. You're being destructive. Mm-hmm. And we need to talk about that. And you need to get a handle on how much you're being destructive. And I think Bree, to a certain part of her brain, hears it and realizes she's not in a place to actually get anywhere on it. And so she deflects herself back into the BS because she does not want to get to that place right now. And I appreciate that there's something that, as a trained professional, that Dr. Hartwood was like, I'm not going to allow her to keep moving in destruction without getting checked on it before she keeps moving forward. And I appreciated that. Is this a part of the story? And it's part of like Bree's journey in general.
I also think too, and then we can go on a bit, like sometimes it is important to get dumped or to be confronted with those things in order to then move to the next level. And I do think that, like, I've been dumped by a therapist before. It sucks because you're like, yo, am I irredeemable? But it does also kind of become one of those like moments that spur you on to the next thing. And I think that Patricia recognizing like, I'm not able to get you where you need to go because of like me weaving Rootcraft into our sessions and stuff. But you need like a little kick in the butt. So here you go. And yeah, shout out to her.
Okay, benched. I think we're all unanimous here.
If you couldn't tell from how we reacted to his freaking him every time Vaughn has shown up in this book, each of us has been like, F that man. He's horrible. He is deplorable. He is the gutter.
Yeah, so that's that.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 36 through 38.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye.
Bye.